This week, 44 years ago, would go down in history. It was the week Elvis Presley died and then was laid to rest at Graceland, the singer's 13-acre estate in Memphis, Tennessee. The world's eyes were on the funeral services. 30,000 fans attended, including former WHAS 11 anchor Jim Mitchell. In tonight's WHAS 11 Vault, we revisit his trip.
For the man they called the King, this is the rock and roll world's state funeral. They began lining up here late last night. They sat through sweltering 90-degree temperatures waiting to pay their final respects to Elvis Presley.
August 1977, WHAS 11 anchor Jim Mitchell stood among the tens of thousands of fans flocking to Memphis, Tennessee, hoping for a chance to get inside Graceland. Elvis fans were heartbroken at the news of his passing. Some in the crowd even fainted, Mitchell reported.
He was my hero. He was the only thing in this whole wide world that mattered to me. I love him so much. He's a fabulous person. I don't know what I feel. It's just, I feel empty.
Back home in Louisville, WHAS 11 reporters found their way to local record stores.
Well, what you're hearing is the song of a man who became a legend in his own time. The song that you're hearing is probably one of the last singles he ever cut, and it's on this album, which is probably one of the last albums he ever cut. One of the many albums that will probably become collector's items.
Fans buying up his records, mourning his death.
I don't know, it's just sad that we lost him.
380 miles away, Jim Mitchell reported live from the funeral.
Elvis was not just the singer, he was the song. For these people, the anthem of a generation that grew up in the 50s and 60s.
The doors to Graceland were closed to the public, but many celebrities drove in to attend, and crowds grew big outside the gates, some driving hundreds of miles to be there, including Kentuckians. Mitchell found them and asked them why they made the trip.
Because I loved him so much.
I just can't believe it. I want to come here and see for myself.
You won't be able to see too much today. They'll just be driving by.
No, just see his hearse. It's good enough.
During his lifetime, Elvis was no stranger to Louisville. He performed at the Armory, now known as the Louisville Gardens. This video from our archive showing the music venue in 1956 as excited fans packed the house ahead of the Elvis arrival. About 2 decades later, he was back, this time at Freedom Hall. Our WHAS 11 cameras caught the King leaving the 1974 performance, waving goodbye to his many fans. It was Elvis's long and storied career that led to his popularity and massive turnout on the day of his funeral.
After an hour inside, the funeral party drove down Elvis Presley Boulevard, and a young woman broke from the crowd and tried, it seemed, to throw herself in front of the hearse. Police caught her before any harm could be done, and the procession moved along toward Forest Hill Park.
Elvis was buried in a mausoleum a few hundred yards from where his mother was buried, covered in hundreds of flowers and worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. It was called a display worthy of the king of rock and roll.
Many people will be saying and writing after this moment that we've come to the end of an era. But maybe not. Elvis once made an album called 50 Million Elvis Fans Can't Be Wrong. And over the years, their numbers grew, and so did their affection. It may be that although the life of Elvis has ended, the legend has not. This is Jim Mitchell, News 11 in Memphis.
Historians report during his time in Louisville, Elvis would stay at the Seelbach Hotel in downtown and visit his grandfather, Jesse D. Presley, who owned a small home in southern Louisville. Every week, we dig into our video archives to bring you some of the most fascinating pieces of Kentuckiana's history. You can see the Vault segments from weeks past right now at WHAS11.com.